Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do not stop eating. We are going to eat right through the program today. So don't delay. Keep eating and enjoy the program as it unfolds. So, Breakthrough Breakfast. Today's topic is pioneering possibilities in cancer research. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that Pier 21 is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We are all treaty people. We also recognize the histories, contributions, and legacies of African Nova Scotian people who have been here for over 400 years. My name is Catherine Ewell, and I'm the Executive Director of Advancement for the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie University. And it is my pleasure to be your MC this morning. I did start my morning by Googling jokes about medical research. I kid you not. But I have to tell you, I didn't actually get most of the punchlines. So it must be an inside kind of joke. But not to worry, my job is not to be a medical researcher or to really deeply be able to speak to you about that research. That's why we have some exciting keynote speakers here today. My job is to tell you the stories of these medical researchers, to share them with our community at large and our donors, and to hopefully inspire philanthropic investment. So when we meet with donors who want to change the world through medical research, our team helps put the researchers together with the donors who care about their work. So I'll leave the medical research talks to the researchers. Today, we are here to celebrate innovative advancements in cancer research and to hear about exciting possibilities that lie ahead. This event today highlights the dedication and hard work of our faculty's researchers, clinicians, and the research community, who are all committed to making a difference in the prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and even cure of cancers. I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to Shanex, our gold sponsor today. Shanex is leading the way in creating a longevity ready society that is inclusive and focused on possibilities for the future. And we're just so grateful for their support. Cancer, as you know, is a significant health challenge, particularly here in Atlantic Canada. Our region has some of the highest cancer rates in the country. It affects countless of our friends, families, and communities. Dalhousie is a hub of world class cancer research in Atlantic Canada, and we're made up of more than 50 principal investigators, a few of whom we will hear from later today, and approximately 250 postdoctoral fellows, graduate students, research assistants, coordinators, and technicians. Our researchers might say those people are the engines of the research that we accomplish. Together, they are driving forward cutting edge research and innovative treatments. Now, there's no need to take notes today. I know you're going to get out your pens and you're going to want to write new therapies down, but we will follow up with a little information sheet that captures the highlights. So, no need to take notes. We'll send you something. Now, speaking of innovative treatments, before we introduce the first of our research speakers, I'd like to share with you a special message from someone who received a cancer diagnosis and was one of the first Nova Scotians to receive a brand new therapy called CAR T cell therapy.
My name is Charles Jesso, and I am 59 years old, and I have been living in Lower Sackville for about 35 years. And I have been married now for nearly 40 years. I have lymphoma, uh, non-Hodgkin's. I had already had two treatments of chemo, and unfortunately, my doctor stated that the chemo did not work, and it would develop into B-cell lymphoma, which is incurable. When he told me that it didn't work, I, I was dumbfounded. It almost like somebody hit me in the head with a ton of bricks. Yeah. I was speechless, and I'm like, okay, what do we do? He told me that it was a new therapy for this type of blood cancer, and it had only actually been in the works for about 6 years. And it was called CAR T therapy. They actually take your cells out of your body, they regenerate them, they get engineered, and they get introduced back to your body. And then they actually set out and they fight the cancer cells that are in your body. I got the therapy on April the 4th. And after that, I was back and forth getting blood work done and pretty much living a normal life. It's totally a miracle of science. I rose from the ashes. It gave me a new life. It gave me a new outlook on life, and it gave me my family back. I'm officially cancer free. I was told this 2 months ago. I was at my sister's wedding 2 years ago, and I was at my own daughter's wedding last November. And I'm due to become a grandfather in August. And I'm doing great. The expertise behind this is just mind-boggling. For something to go into your body to actually attack the cancer and to have it just disappear like that, and knowing that it's gone, it's mind-blowing. We've been fighting cancer now for 60 years. The more money we put into it and the more concentration effort, I think we can definitely win this battle.
With medical research, we're really working in very close partnership across the region with healthcare providers, clinicians, and medical researchers hand in hand. We cannot really make these advances in research without that close partnership. So when we hear Charles talk about CAR T therapy, we really are reflecting on the deep system we have here in Nova Scotia to deliver such therapies. Many of you may have heard the QE2 Foundation last year in 2023 raised some significant funds to help deliver CAR T in our region. And now, together with our researchers, we're working towards a plan to make that a reality right here in Nova Scotia. Because cancer is something that touches each of our lives in some way, cancer research is something that we can all get behind. Our researchers are working tirelessly to find solutions that will allow for earlier and faster diagnosis, personalized treatments, and ultimately cure. One of those researchers is Dr. Shashi Gujar. He can't be here with us today, but you may all be familiar with him, those who have been to the Breakthrough Breakfast before. And we thought we would invite him to provide a short video to talk a little bit about this innovation that he focuses on, personalized precision cancer immunotherapies, and how that overlays kind of the theme that we're talking about today. So now we'll hear from Dr. Gujar.
My name is Dr. Shashi Guja, and I work as a scientist with Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie University. Our research program specializes in developing immune innovations that can be used to prevent, diagnose, or treat cancers. Not too long ago, cancer diagnosis used to be a death sentence. Now we have solutions to many cancers which can be very effectively targeted using these cancer immunotherapies. These new type of cancer immunotherapies train our own immune system to fight cancers on their own. In our laboratory, we use cancer-killing viruses that educate our immune system to seek and destroy cancers, as well as light-activated chemotherapy drugs that can be activated only by certain values of light, so that the side effects of cancer immunotherapy will be minimal. Immunotherapies are progressing at an astonishing speed. Developments from many different scientific areas, such as computer science, AI, data science, chemistry, all those are being poured in the field of medicine to develop the next generation of immunotherapies. The future wherein almost every health condition is addressed with immunotherapies, is not in far too distant future. I'm almost confident that the future of human health is going to be in immunotherapies.
All right, it's time to move on to our featured speakers today. I want to start by saying, of course, we have so many exciting researchers at work at Dalhousie. We could not feature them all, but we're really pleased with the three that we've selected to highlight here today. We've asked each of them to speak to you in a very short time frame about their very in-depth research concepts. So let's see how they do. We're going to keep everybody to about 8 minutes, but save your questions to the end. We will be doing some question and answer opportunities at the end, and we know that you'll have some questions. So, our first speaker this morning is Dr. Robin Urquhart. Dr. Urquhart is an associate professor and the Canadian Cancer Society Endowed Chair in Population Cancer Research in the Department of Community Health and Epidemiology. She's a senior scientist with the Beatrice Hunter Cancer Research Institute and an affiliate scientist at Nova Scotia Health. Dr. Urquhart's research spans the entire cancer continuum, exploring issues related to access, quality, equity, effectiveness in cancer care. She's also the Nova Scotia lead of the Terry Fox Marathon of Hope Atlantic Cancer Consortium. It's a mouthful, but it's a great, exciting project. Ask me about it later. And the scientific director of the Atlantic Partnership for Tomorrow's Health. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Urquhart.
Okay, hello everyone. It's really great to be here this morning in this beautiful venue and to hear about all of the exciting therapies that we're going to hear about and that are happening now and that basically, have so much promise for patients here in Atlantic Canada. At the same time, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my research. And the fact is, if people don't have access to these therapies, they're not going to benefit. So that sounds pretty simple, right? So I want to take a little bit of time to really talk about access to cancer care and the work we've been doing to understand access and to improve access. First, I thought I would start at my beginning. I'm a bit of a storyteller. I'm from Newfoundland. I'm from a tiny, small outport community on the coast of the White Bay, which is encircled there on the map. This is a picture of me chewing on a red balloon at a birthday party at my grandmother's house when I was probably about a year old or so. My childhood was really a lovely childhood until I turned about 9 years old, until I was about 9. At that time, my dad, who was in his mid-30s, became really sick. And so after about a year, more than a year actually, of traveling back and forth to St. John's, which was a 7-hour drive away, for tests, investigations, and then a big surgery, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. About 6 months after his diagnosis, he died. And he died at home, and he died without any medical care or support. So it was just my mom, my grandmothers, and my aunts there to care for him. Less than 4 years later, my mom, who was then in her mid-30s, was also diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And she died about 5 months after her diagnosis. We still had very limited access to care and supports. We had no home care options. And in the last month of her life, there was actually not a single primary care provider on our entire peninsula. So at 14, I was her primary caregiver. And to be honest, I really just did the best that I could. So if we fast forward to today, my research, as Catherine just said, my research program really studies access to care, studies quality issues in terms of care. It studies equity and inequities in access to care. And why do we do this? Well, we do this because we believe that every person, regardless of where they live or regardless of their individual circumstances, deserves the best care available. So I want us to consider for a moment where we are, right? We're sitting right now this morning eating in beautiful Mi'kma'ki. And the fact is, there are some things about this region of our Earth, this beautiful region of our Earth, that are different than other parts of Canada. So many of you will know, and as was just said, our region has the highest cancer rates in the country. We also have many of the highest cancer mortality rates or death rates. And there's a lot of different reasons for these high cancer rates. Some of it has to do with genetics, particularly for some types of cancer. Some of the reasons are because of our high risk factors, the high prevalence of certain risk factors here, such as obesity and poor diet. Another reason for certain cancers may be because of the geography and where we live and the environment in which we live. So by that, I actually mean the air that we breathe and the water that we drink. I want to talk about a couple of other ways, though, that our area is unique. And I want to talk about these because these are things that really impact a person's access to cancer care. Not a lot of people live here. You probably know that. We're sparsely populated. A lot of people who do live here live in rural areas. So if you take our whole region as a whole, more than, our rural population is more than 2 times that of the national average. So think about this in the context of trying to organize and deliver and access cancer services. It creates some challenges. More than 1 in 5 of us are 65 years of age or older. The recent data from 2 months ago, actually, from April this year, shows us that about half of adults in our region, 48%, are less than $200 away from insolvency. So we don't live in a particularly wealthy part of the country. And 31% of us in the Atlantic provinces do not have access to a primary care provider, don't have a regular primary care provider. And that's, again, highest in the country alongside Quebec. So just imagine for a moment, you have been diagnosed with cancer. Because of the treatment that you have to take, you've had to take time off work for 6 months or 9 months, maybe even 12 months or longer. And on top of this loss of income, you're now realizing that you are shelling out $500 or $600 extra a month on the extra medications that you need that go along with your cancer treatment. And they travel back and forth to the cancer center where you're receiving your treatment. And you are one of those 48% of Atlantic Canadians who are less than $200 away from insolvency. So what would you do? Even if you could afford this and you could afford the cost, there's probably a million things, a million questions swirling around in your mind. One of those might be, will I actually have access to the best available treatment, the best management I can, because I live in this region? Will I have access to the best available treatments to help me get rid of this disease? This is a quote from a person with lived cancer experience who's been a member of my research teams for the past 5 years or so. And this is what she said to me the very first time I met her. My biggest fear when I was diagnosed was that I would not have access to the same treatments because I live in rural New Brunswick and not downtown Toronto. So this is a real concern for many people. My research here in Nova Scotia in colorectal cancer and pancreatic cancer, for example, has found that a substantial proportion of patients diagnosed with these diseases do not receive the treatments that have been shown to be beneficial based on their specific disease. And this research has further shown that receipt of that treatment, access to that care, is related to or associated with how far the person lives from one of our 2 main cancer centers, related to their age at diagnosis, also related to their sex assigned at birth. Research that we're doing right now in Nova Scotia on ovarian cancer is also showing us that certain segments of our population have poorer access to what we would consider high quality cancer care. So for example, women who experience poverty have less access, poorer access to specialist resources, including to gyne-oncologists, than women who do not experience poverty. And we can't forget about people once they're past treatment. For many people who've had a cancer diagnosis, when life is sewn back together, it has changed. Our research in Nova Scotia for the past almost 2 decades now, we found that many people struggle for years sometimes after their cancer treatment, and even when they're, disease-free. And they're struggling with things such as high anxiety, high fear of recurrence, chronic pain, high levels of fatigue. They're struggling to return to work. So what are we doing about these things? Well, in my program, we also spend a lot of time designing and testing interventions to address these challenges. So I'm talking about things like um, tailored sort of services and navigation services to increase cancer screening in underserved communities. Strategies to actually expedite tests and investigations if there's a suspicion of cancer. And we're just completing a trial right now where we're looking at the effectiveness of a virtual peer-led navigation program to help people transition from active treatment to long-term follow-up. So you're hearing about all of these new exciting therapies today. And you're going to hear extraordinary things, and I really do mean extraordinary things. Um, we're also doing a lot of work here, and I just want you to know that to make sure people have access to these things, that they have access to the therapies and the services that they need to prevent their cancer, to prevent cancer, to treat cancer, but also to live well with their cancer or beyond it. So this is my last slide. I told you about my parents. This is a picture of them on their wedding day, and I look at my mom, and she just looks beautiful. If many of you will know that if they were diagnosed today with pancreatic cancer, they'd still have a pretty dire prognosis, right? Not a ton has changed. But if they're diagnosed today, there are treatment options that certainly weren't available then, and there are treatment options that are showing benefit in certain subgroups of patients. The other thing is we have a huge, much better access to clinical trials today than we've ever had. And so these trials are testing these new promising approaches, particularly for hard to treat cancers. And so I'm talking about things like new personalized treatment regimens, often that include immunotherapies for pancreatic cancer. So I'll leave you with this thought. Research is care. And I think there are probably not that many other cancers where it's really highlighted and where that's really true than pancreatic cancer. So thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting cancer research here at Dalhousie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Urquhart. That was great. Um, our next speaker today is Dr. Mahmoud El-Sawi. Dr. El-Sawi is an assistant professor of hematology and a hematologist and transplant physician. He is the driving force behind the first CAR T cell therapy program here in Atlantic Canada, and he serves as the medical director of Nova Scotia's, let's say the full name of that program out, immune effector cell therapy, which we're calling CAR T. Dr. El-Sawi's work in CAR T therapy has treated 30 patients in the region and is showcasing the remarkable potential of this treatment to make a big difference in the cancer treatments that we are offering today and in new ones that will develop in the future. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. El-Sawi.
Catherine, where is the pointer? Oh, found it. Thank you. Hey, can you guys hear me? Well, thank you so much for the warm introduction. Thank you for involving me in this very nice event. And breakthrough will be a theme today. So we will talk about lots of breakthroughs in cancer history. But let me first show you 33 seconds of something similar to what have happened inside Mr. Jesso's body for the past 2 years. So this is a T cell. And it's very powerful. It's small, but very powerful. This is a cancer cell, and it is attacking the cancer cell. and then this will eventually die, will burst. Lots of T cells are attacking from many directions. So that's amazing. So one T cell, one CAR T cell can attack 1,000 cells. So now this is another picture of the CAR T cells. So the red dots are the CARs, we'll say CARs for now, and the B cells or the white are the cancer cells. So it's really a story to tell. And this is a story of a living drug. So I always like to tell a story, and this tale is very fascinating. And I'm sure you will find it interesting as much as I do. So this is a magic bag. This is the actual bag that Mr. Jesse received. And it does have 60 mils of white blood cells. That's why it's white. And it all has life in it. This is a lifeline. So again, it's a story. And let's start with a landmark point in history when the FDA approved the first gene therapy ever in human history, August 2017. It gave it a name, chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy. Very big name. We'll say CAR for now. So what does CAR mean? So this is a Greek mythology that speaks about a fire-breathing animal that has a hybrid of a lion, goat, snake tail. And when we use chimera in medicine right now, we refer to things that are mix of a host and non-host, things that doesn't naturally occur together. And that's because in CAR T cells, we re-engineer, re-educate the T cells, which is a very powerful cell in our immune system, by inserting an antigen on the surface of this T cell that makes it very specific to attack a specific target on the B cell, which is the cancer. So that's why it's a mix of a self and non-self. When we talk about cancer care, there are traditionally 4 pillars in cancer care treatment: radiation therapy, surgery, chemotherapy as we know it, and precision medicine. But really, CAR T cell therapy doesn't fall under any of this. It does fall under a new field that has been exponentially growing since the late 1990s called immunotherapy. Again, another breakthrough. So the Science magazine in 2013 called it the breakthrough of the year. But really, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in 2017 or 2013 or 2010. So it's a story of tragedy, perseverance, and chance. And the chance here serves the prepared minds. We do have a great chance today here in Nova Scotia. So let's go back. And I was told I will have 8 minutes to summarize like decades of cancer treatment. So just please, we'll travel at the speed of light. So fasten your seatbelts. So over 3,500 years ago, this is an ancient Egyptian pharaoh queen. She's so beautiful, and she was named the ruler of the Nile. Look at her eyeliner. That's very beautiful eyeliner. But really, it's not about the eyeliner. So researchers analyzed this eyeliner in 2010. They found a special type of lead ions that was not in Egypt at that time. So they intentionally made it and brought it to synthesize this. And this was the first known chemical process in history. Why is this important? When they exposed this lead ion to skin cells and blood vessels, it led to a profound immunologic response that triggered the travel of bacteria eating immune cells, macrophages, to protect whatever you put it on. It's a kind of an antibacterial. So somehow they realize that you have a power in your body that you can train and you can trigger. Somehow they figured out you have it inside your body. And why is this important? Because back in old Egypt, they had lots of floods with the river and the desert, so they were exposed to lots of eye infection and inflammation. So that was their way to figure out how to protect themselves. And this eyeliner was called kuhul for you who know Arabic. So many steps, and I will not walk you through all of this, but you can just hear this is a summary of how it started very small increments, but consistently forward in the right direction till we got the first adult to receive CAR T cell therapy in 2010, first child in 2012, fast forward to 2017 when the FDA approved this treatment. This is one of the godfathers of immunotherapy and transplant, Dr. E. Donald Thomas, receiving the Nobel Prize. He is the founder of the Fred Hutch, where I was privileged to receive my core transplant training in the States, where I really saw his future when I was there. Another outside the box thinker, Dr. Cooley, he was a surgeon, innovative. Really, he noticed when wounds of sarcoma, a type of bone cancer, gets infected, it kind of also shrinks. So he thought, okay, maybe the bacterial infection triggers some sort of an immune response that not just attacks the bacteria, but also attacks the cancer cells. So he started injecting people with germs. It didn't go well, but at least he thought about it. But look at this in New York Times, like germs, I will not take that for sure. So now how to put it all together? So it's a very complex process to get this CAR T cell therapy. Starts by leukapheresis or collecting T cells from the patient, just regular T cells, and then through good manufacturing practice, you'll hear GMP today. This is what GMP means, good manufacturing practice. Very complex process. We send it to the States where the magic happens and insert a gene inside the cell, and now it turns to CAR T that has an antigen that can attack the cancer, proliferate and multiply in millions, and send it back in a process that can take up to 4 to 5 weeks or 3 to 4 weeks in sometimes in the States, and then infuse it to the patient. That's what's happening right now. A close look. So that's a CAR, and that's a T cell, and attacking an antigen on the cancer cell. It's kind of a key and lock mechanism. Once this reaction happens, it fires every single human immune cell and attacks the cancer cells and eliminates it. So in a sense, it's teaching an old dog a new trick. We always have the T cells. It just we didn't know how to unlock the power, how to unleash it. So this guy is unleashed and he's having fun. So it did lead to lots of waves across the globe, global, nationwide, and regional. So let's focus our own story here in home sweet home, Nova Scotia. So our story actually began 1992 when we had our first transplant program in Atlantic Canada, east of Quebec, and we were the only center to offer transplant in this region for decades. So the first CAR T cell therapy was approved in Canada in 2018. Fast forward, we worked tirelessly with our leadership with Cancer Care Agency, Department of Health and Wellness, to get this treatment as a standard of care to our patients where they live. So as a beginning, we used to send patients to the States to receive this treatment in Boston. And here is the trajectory. So we used to send patients to get it outside of the country, and this is a real PET scan of one of our first treated patients. And on the right here, you can see this is full of cancer. And on the left, that 30 days after a single one lifetime infusion of CAR T cells, and the cancer is gone. So this is amazing. This is unprecedented, unheard of. And that was why it was a breakthrough, because it was used in patients who will otherwise be dead from their cancers. However, an image is worth 1,000 words. This image was worth of a $1 million outside the country. Again, we continued working with our leadership to bring it here. And today marks 2 years of the announcement, or actually 3 years of the announcement, and 2 years from the beginning of our program here, where we received the green light to offer it here. And we became on the CAR T map as the 4th province in Atlantic Canada to offer this groundbreaking therapy. So the first patient, Mr. Jessel, received his treatment April 4th, 2022. He is now cancer-free. Again, to show you the concept of a living drug, so starting from the far left here, this is a tumor, and after 30 days of a single infusion, the tumor, you can barely see it, and after 120 days, it's gone, and this is with one treatment, so that the cells remain there. They are not metabolized. They continue surveillance, kind of staying in the body. When they find cancer, they start attacking again. That's why we call it the living drug. So just a brief summary of our experience here. This is a nice curve for those of you who can see it. This is our 30 patients treatment so far, where we have seen unprecedented 80% survival, with almost over half of these are complete remissions within 30 or 90 days. That means their cancer is gone. And previously, those patients would have about 6 months to live if it wasn't for that therapy. So this is the first child to receive CAR T cell therapy in the world, and that's her image throughout the years. And she's now cured 12 years after her treatment, where she was previously been palliative. And that was due to research. It was a study back then. So it all starts with a good question to find cures. So now we are doing cures instead of palliation. So if you are impressed as much as I do, this is only the second generation cars. We have third, fourth, and fifth generation cars coming down the pipeline. So back to the big picture. So actually what we have now is part of a field that's growing very fast called immune effector cell therapy, or what I like to call interventional immunology, where we intervene in the immune system to figure out how to harness this power and make it work to our best. So this is the tip of an iceberg, and the FDA expects 10 to 20 gene therapies to be approved 2025. This was 2 years ago, so 2025 is just around the corner. Coming soon, and I will let my brilliant colleague, Dr. Janet Boudreau, speaks more about that. The use of NK cells, another powerful tool in our immune system. So where are the cars going? So the cars are here to stay, and obviously are not going anywhere. They will go places. So they will go way further than we thought they would. So now the first treatment was approved in the States for advanced melanoma along the same lines called TIL, or tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. They give it a name, Lifileucel, so it's life again. And that was March 2024. So that's where we are, but that's not the end of it. That's actually the beginning of it. So 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and beyond, we now have a group of researchers in Canada who have been working for years tirelessly to bring this treatment in Canada, made in Canada. And as I told you, we used to send patients to the States. Now we send their cells to the States. Now we want to make it here in Canada. So that's how it should evolve. And this is a strategic partnership and the vision of Dalhousie University working with the QE2 Foundation. As you heard, they funded infrastructure for setting up this lab here, and Nova Scotia Health and the IWK. That's what makes us stronger. Strategic partnership. I'm quoting Dr. Andreen on this partnership word because I love. So hopefully, my hope is to have made in Nova Scotia cars sooner than later. And with all what you do today, this will be made possible. So this is our team. It takes a village, and that's during our ride for cancer, funded by the QE2 Foundation. Again, Dr. Boudreau here. So Janet. So it really takes a village and a lot of people. This is not one thing that one person or two or three or one organization can do. It really takes a village. I'm privileged to work with a group of brilliant, smart people, hematologists and nurse practitioners and nurses. And I think all of you know Dr. Darrell White. He's our transplant director. He's one of this village too. So I will end by this. I always quote this at the end. And this guy, this is a fancy car. I don't have it, but it's just fancy. I love it. And this guy, who's the founder of these cars, or like whatever he made, he was always asked about his favorite car. And he always said, it's the next one. So for me, my favorite car is always the next one. So talking about next one, this is the former IMV facility that we hopefully want to turn into a GMP Biolabs East with your work, with your support to have made in Nova Scotia CAR T cells for our patients here at home where they live. With that, I will thank you and will thank all my colleagues, all people who work with us. And of course, a big thank you to our patients and their families who put their trust in us to bring them the best and the most advanced treatments to cure their cancers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated you adding all the pictures for those of us who really interpret our science through images and through laughter. Very exciting work. I'm so excited. I hope you were excited as well. Um, I really want to take the time for our researchers, so I don't want Jeanette to feel rushed. Where's Jeanette sitting? Don't feel rushed. You take your time. We'll just take a little bit of time out of the questions. So our next speaker is Dr. Jeanette Boudreau. Dr. Boudreau is an associate professor of Dalhousie University in the departments of pathology and microbiology and immunology. She is also the scientific director of the Beatrice Hunter Cancer Research Institute, an Atlantic Canada-wide consortium of cancer researchers. Dr. Boudreau's research focuses on the role of natural killer immune cells in disease therapies. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Boudreau.
Good morning. I can be fast. If you let me talk, I'll talk all day. So every day, the trillions of cells in our body are at risk. Cells get damaged, they get infected, they get hurt, or they just get old and they need to be replaced. And to replace our cells, we need to copy all of our DNA and make duplicates upon duplicates upon duplicates of our cells. And most of the time, like the vast majority of the time, everything goes really, really well, no problem. But every now and then a mistake is made. But that's okay because there's mechanisms in your cell to fix them. And most of the time, those get picked up and they get fixed. But every now and then something happens and a mutation is sustained and the cell gets to live. That's okay because we have these immune cells. And they're in our body constantly patrolling the system, looking for errors, looking for cells that look just not quite right, looking for things that have gone off the rails. Now, you have to have that unlikely event of sustaining a mutation, escaping a mutation, avoiding immune recognition 6 times in the same cell in genes that are relevant to develop a tumor that's clinically relevant. This is a really rare event, but with the trillions of cells copying themselves in our body all the time, it's not impossible for this to happen. And by the time a patient has a clinically noticeable tumor, that cancer has been coexisting with the immune system for months or years, constantly testing all of the ways that it might escape from immune recognition. This has achieved a stalemate between the cancer and the immune system. And all we're trying to do with immunotherapies is give the immune system the leg up so that it can start to contribute to cancer control again. By the time we know that we have a cancer, we have a cluster of these mean, mutated, off the rails, dysregulated, hungry little beasts of cells that we need to satiate with some sort of therapy. I mean, in some ways, when you put it like this, it's kind of surprising that anything works, right? So how do we design a therapy that's as agile and flexible as the cancer itself to keep up with all these mutations that it just continuously generates? I hope you're all enjoying your breakfast. So my dad always told me that if you search things right the first time, you wouldn't have to research them. I know, it's funny the first time you hear it. This is a problem we kind of already know the solution to. Dad was also an engineer. He liked to put little things together and tinker. So I want you to think about eggs, salt, and flour, and all the things that you can do with 3 really simple ingredients. I'll give you a hint. We can make all of these different foods. So imagine that hungry crowd of immune cells. Everybody wants something different. I face this problem every day. My 6-year-old doesn't eat anything that I want to make for her. So we make different things. And we can do this with just 3 ingredients. Imagine what would happen if you had 50 ingredients. Well, now you've got a well-stocked pantry. The natural killer cell is the pantry of the immune system. Or to put it another way, it's like a Swiss Army knife. It's got about 50 different things that we can pull out and we can use in different combinations to create different combinations of immune cells. Those living drugs that you just heard about from my colleague Mahmoud, same idea, except instead of 1 CAR T cell receptor, my NK cell has 50. And if I want to, I can stick a CAR in there too. So as the tumor is changing and evolving, we can use NK cells to get them to sort of evolve right alongside the tumor. These guys have another superpower, which is amazing. You can take natural killer cells out of one human and transplant them into any other human you want. We don't have to make 1 NK cell product for each patient. We can make vats of natural killer cells and use them to treat multiple patients. Sounds great, right? This is the future. We can't do it yet, but the clinical trials are looking really, really promising. The toxicities are not bad, and we can put CARs in there, and that's kind of the next step. So how do we take a therapy that is personalized, 1 therapy for 1 patient, and accelerate it to a therapy that is scalable, deliverable, off the shelf, cheaper, and accessible in a publicly funded healthcare system? You see why we got Robin to talk to you, right? So that's the NK cell. So this is a picture that was taken by one of the trainees in my lab, Sarah Nersessian. She's a brilliant PhD student. She's about to defend, and man, am I glad she's on our side. This is a tumor. Every dot that you see on this slide is a different cell that exists within that tumor. The pink ones are the cancer cells, But all the other colors are different immune cells. This was not a patient that was treated with immunotherapy. This is a patient that had her tumor removed. This is an ovarian tumor prior to receiving chemotherapy. All those yellow dots are natural killer cells. And so what we're able to do in my lab is we can study the tumors that patients generously donate to us to see how their natural killer cells are behaving in the situation where the natural killer cells are doing their job and patients are surviving and responding to treatment. And we can compare that to the situation where patients aren't doing as well. And from this, we've already got some clues. I showed you the Swiss Army knife. We know that one of the important tools is this molecule called CD16. But we also know that one of the important functions is getting NK cells into the tumor, getting those natural killer cells to communicate with the rest of the immune system, and we're starting to get clues about what we want them to do. In other words, by studying patient tumors themselves, we can start to get clues about how to get NK cells to target cancers more thoroughly. The big scary cells with all those dots in them, those are the tumor cells. This little guy that's swimming around, that's the natural killer cell. Two important things from this slide. This looks just like the video that Mahmoud showed you at the beginning, except if you were really paying attention, I think I can go back. Watch this. What was wrong with that first cell? This NK cell swims all the way down to the bottom corner before it really gets excited about this tumor cell. And do you know why? Because that NK cell has the right Swiss Army knife for that tumor cell, but maybe not that one up at the top. So we can give cocktails of NK cells. I already told you we can grow them up in vats, right? So we can just mix and match, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. Here's my Swiss Army knife NK cell. So natural killer cells are the closest living relative to a T cell. We're building this research on the shoulders and backs of tons and tons of other processes that came before. Mahmoud showed you a brilliant timeline of all the research that had to be done in order to enable this. There are pipelines of CAR T cells coming, but there are also pipelines of other therapies that modify the immune system, including natural killer cells. And with this new GMP facility, if we're talking about it, I'm really excited not only to create today's immunotherapies, but also to translate these findings that are coming out of research laboratories like mine into new therapies for tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. That was great. Also appreciated your videos. Very interesting. Just to step back a little bit and add another piece about the GMP facility that all of our researchers have highlighted today. This is a priority for Dalhousie's Faculty of Medicine right now. It's an opportunity for philanthropists to join us. We've got many partners coming together to make a GMP facility a possibility for Atlantic Canada. Dalhousie's taking the lead in the physical space that creates this lab that will actually enable our researchers to take their early stage research and be able to get it to the clinical trial phase. You cannot put things that you've developed into humans unless you produce them in a GMP facility. So that's one of our priorities, sort of on the fundraising side. And it's so important to all of this great research. So now we'd really like to have an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I hope you are thinking of some questions right now. We're going to get all of our speakers to join us back on stage as a panel. There is a microphone up here that you can come up to ask your question. And to get started with that and to host this session, I'd like to invite Dr. Eileen Denovan Wright, who I work very closely with. Dr. Denovan Wright is the Associate Dean of Research in the Faculty of Medicine, and she is also a professor and researcher in pharmacology. Dr. Wright.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks to our incredible speakers and their wonderful presentations. I'm sure we all learned something today, and I'm hoping that you're sitting there thinking of your questions. You know, I would like to say that it's one of the great privileges as an Associate Dean of Research to work with and support such an amazing and talented pipeline of researchers who, as you can tell, know each other and work together, all the way from the very basic science in the lab through to the clinical research through to the policy. And it is this network that is so critically important for our success. So We've heard about some truly remarkable advances in cancer research this morning, and this is ongoing work. This is decades and decades of work and a commitment from all of our researchers in the region in Dalhousie University and other universities that we partner with and funders to actually do cancer research. And I'm sure many of you have questions. So we have an opportunity now, as Catherine said, if you want and you're able, please come up to the microphone. And if you're not able, I'll try to listen for your question and repeat it. So we welcome you to think about questions. But in the meantime, I've got a question to start the committee off while you're thinking, because everyone's always a little bit shy at the beginning. So I would like to say, Dr. Urquhart, you have very powerful talk about the importance of access and care, and I think that that is large in people's minds. So you also talked about the air we breathe, the water we drink in this region and our rural environment. So, how can people, what can they learn? How can they know more about their environmental exposures where we live, and how can they lessen their personal risks?
So that's
Easy question just to start you off
a
there,
great
Robin.
question. We're actually doing quite a bit of work right now specific to lung cancer and sort of some of these environmental exposures. So, um, we live in a unique area of the world. We have very, very high levels of radon in our area of the world, in our area of Canada. In fact, Canadians are the second most exposed people in the world to radon. And we know that radon is sort of the number 2 contributor to lung cancer. We also have very high levels of arsenic, often through well water. So in our rural areas, if you're on well water, arsenic's known to be associated with whole slew of cancers also actually, but lung cancer as well as sort of bladder cancer, colon cancer, renal cancers. Um, so how do you become aware? I actually think at least around radon, there is more awareness right now, but this is sort of classic public health communication and prevention, right? We do need to work with, I think, our public health colleagues, folks who do health promotion, folks who do policy work to make sure that people are aware of their risk. And we're actually doing in this research quite a bit of work with communities who are at particular risk to increase their awareness of their risk. But to mitigate is a policy issue. It's not an individual issue. I mean, individuals, if you can afford, for example, if you have high levels of radon in your home and you can afford to mitigate, then you can do that. But really, it has to be a policy issue, and we need to work with our governments to have stronger building codes if we want to think about our environment, and to be able to mitigate in those areas where there is actually quite a bit of radon and there are hot spots in our province. So I don't think it's an individual issue. It's certainly a policy issue, and it does run from not just mitigation, but it really starts at building codes. I mean, Sweden versus Canada, lung cancer rates dramatically different, smoking rates the same, smoking cessation rates over time the same. What's the difference? One really big difference is better building codes in Sweden. So,
Thank you. Please come on up if you can, or I can repeat the question.
Manufacturing process facility as opposed to going Montreal or Boston, some other place.
Excellent question.
Excellent
Excellent.
question. So actually, they don't have a GMP facility in Canada that is certified to treat patients as of yet. So all the cells has to go to the States where the big pharma company commercials have to go. So in a system where we're publicly funded, that carries lots of challenges. Let go, the first thing is the logistical challenge with shipping. We dealt with that over the pandemic, right? So this unrevealed lots of vulnerabilities in our system. We used to send patients to Boston. Imagine during a pandemic, that's a 2-hour flight during a pandemic. That was like a whole big problem for patients who don't even have a passport. So that's what we faced at the beginning. Now, sending the cells, it takes time. This is time sensitive because remember, these patients, they do have growing cancers by the hour. And to wait for 3 to 4 weeks, that can be too long for some patients that we might not even treat. So some patients might not even get to be treated. Let's go collect the cells from them. The biggest challenge is the cost. So it comes with a huge price tag. And what we figured out with a group of Canadians who are working for many, many years to how to build it here is that we can come up with a cost that's really 1/3 or 1/4 of the cost that it currently pays right now. Imagine how many indications you will have. This is just one indication. When we started, we didn't really expect how many indications we'll have. By now, we have tens of indications, not just in cancer, outside cancer, autoimmune disease. So it is an explosion of indications. And to pay for all of that in a publicly funded system, that would be just prohibitive. So that's why the need to have a facility inside our system, and we would join a network of providers. So we'll not work in silos. So the GMP facility will be part of a Canadian network called BioCanaRx. These are researchers who want to develop coast to coast, made in Canada products. So maybe we'll be a satellite inside our region to continue our leadership role in that region. I hope that answers your question.
Please. Please.
So what's the connection between good manufacturing process and clients? What the benefit?
Yeah, well, it all starts with a question, and that's a very good question because if you ask a question, that's a clinical trial, and then a clinical trial moves to be a standard of care. So to have something that is a standard of care to deliver to humans, you have to build it inside a GMP facility. So that's a Health Canada FDA mandate. So you can do it on a clinical trial in a non-GMP facility. But when it comes to clinical grade use, to use in humans as a standard of care, which is the way this is going, it has to be done in a GMP facility. And of course, time, which I didn't allude to too much, but this cuts the time from currently 3 to 4 weeks all the way down to 12 days. So that's remarkable.
Thank you for that question. So I think it's really to summarize, it's being part of this national Canadian network is going to be critical for us to liberate research going forward. But it's also going to mean that regionally we have a facility that can produce these treatments for us, by us, and to sustain us in a time sensitive manner. So I think that's the really exciting thing, Mahmoud. That Dr. Al-Sawi was really referring to. I saw another question over here. I saw a hand up, but now they've decided not to put their hand up. Sorry. That was a great question. Thank you for that. So just, I would say this Biolabs East, because we're on this theme, we're talking about moving these current treatments as soon as possible into early clinical trials and into standard of care. But your research, Jeanette, Dr. Boudreau, has been talking about the possibilities. Do we see this also, this local GMP facility, as being a pipeline for research over decades, or this is something that if we invest now and can do it here, we will have a pipeline of trained people that can do it? Can you comment on how important this is for, as you see yourself as a young researcher, going to be here for many decades yet to come leading cancer therapy? How important is for you and for all the great people that you train that want to have jobs here?
Yeah, so I went into academia, so people would call me young into my 40s. Um, so there are lots to unpack in that question. So I think to sort of build on what Dr. Alsawi was talking about, as we move into, so especially CAR T, that's a personalized cancer therapy. So the structure of that trial sort of says we're going to identify patients that have this, but then we're going to make one by one therapies for those patients. So there's no outsourcing that to Toronto. Like you can ship the cells, but you can't make enough cells for the whole trial. You have to do that one by one, and having that locally just streamlines processes. That's, it's not easy, right? So I have graduate students in my lab. These are PhD students, master's students. Several of them are over here if you want to meet some of them. A lot of them are from the Atlantic region and really, really want to stay in the Atlantic region. And they're talented and they're ambitious, and I want nothing more than for them to stay in the Atlantic region. And oftentimes they'll go somewhere else if they really want to be on the cutting edge of stuff. So first and foremost, keeping that talent in Nova Scotia is important to me. But I can also, vouch for the fact that that talent is in Nova Scotia, so we'll be able to staff the place. This is the future, right? So right now, CAR T is indicated in a handful of cancers as standard of care, and then there's a bunch of indications coming up through the clinical trials pipeline, and this positions us to actually get our patients in those trials. Remember, research is care, right? And then as they come up, this is positioning us to have these. So the parallel that I can draw is that if you think about chemotherapy, if I say chemotherapy, that's not one drug, right? We know that there's dozens of chemotherapies we can give in different doses and combinations. That's the same thing for immunotherapy. So we talk about cellular therapies, and there's dozens of cellular therapies, but there's also dozens of therapies like oncolytic viruses coming down the pipeline, recombinant proteins, antibodies, checkpoint blockades. It's a whole, Mahmoud showed you the wheel, right? And the GMP facility is positioning us to kind of get in on all of that space, right? And then doing it as part of a national network, the stuff that we don't make in Nova Scotia, we access from, say, Ottawa or Vancouver. And then we kind of trade between them. So um, this sort of not only gives us a seat at that table, which is really important, but it gives us a position to be in, to be a leader in this space. So there's delivering the cares and kind of doing what we need to be doing for our patients, but there's also bringing the next things to bear. And I don't know if I can overemphasize how much this GMP facility is going to let us take the discoveries from the lab, the people that are trained at Dalhousie and the spaces around here, and move them to a space where they're helping patients in our region.
Thank you very much. I see another question there, please.
Well, I think I can speak loud enough, but this will challenge your ability to dumb things down a little bit. Thank you for the presentations. Every time I see today included, I get really excited because I see progress being registered. I imagine outcomes associated with that progress. I'm among many people who have family members who dealt with cancer, one form or another, and it creates a great deal of hope. I've seen other presentations that have left me feeling the same way, and hope is a good thing. But for those of us who are kind of regular folk who are dealing with those situations during our lifetimes, are worried about our family members, our kids, even our grandkids when that time comes, we translate this uh, impression of tremendous progress, and I have no question there's tremendous progress, into uh, an expectation in terms of how our world will be different vis-a-vis dealing with cancer that's really close to home for many of us.
I can answer this. That's a brilliant question actually, because like yeah, what would this lead to? Because like that's all nice, fine science, but actually in one day, and this is not far from now, I imagine there will be a world of like maybe a chemotherapy-free era where you have this personalized medicine where you can get off-the-shelf treatment that only works for that particular patient, for that particular cancer, maybe even for that particular cancer with that specific gene. This is within reach. So it was a science fiction maybe 10 years or 20 years ago. The ideas have been there. Now it's turning to become reality. What we saw today is work of decades. Now I think things are moving at the speed of light, as I said. So it's not going to take decades before this becomes a reality where you have a very personalized chemotherapy, free radiotherapy, free treatments, not just cancers, but outside of cancers too. This is now expanding to treating gene therapies. We know how to play with the genes, and we know how to harness or unlock this immune system, the power of this immune system. Back to this facility, and the first question, it's about like I will build on my colleagues' sayings. It's about access to care because we can do it all. We can do it like in silos. Now the world is moving towards like point of care manufacturing of these therapies. That's decentralized. Now it's all centralized in the States. What we want to do here in Canada is to have decentralized, and again, that's a trend in Europe, by the way, and they have approved therapies now, today, so it's not in the future. And in the States, they have point of care manufacturing now, today. It happened already. So we want to join this train, which already moved before it's too late to unlock our own potential. We have lots of potential here, lots of brilliant people, and we just need something to unlock it, to turn it from paper to reality to treat patients. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you for one of the work tremendously doing. Instead of finding an idea what one was here.
All right. Stream.
I'm gonna tell you that we've lucked into an incredible confluence of events that have made this affordable. So When we originally envisioned this and made this a priority for the Faculty of Medicine in 2021, and we started to think about what might be possible, this was mid-pandemic, we estimated the cost would be about $80 million to build a facility that could do this work. And $80 million is a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And we were thinking about this. That would be both a facility, all the research equipment, the trained people, the research, a huge amount of money. But it was worthwhile because we think the potential for how it will change people's lives and get them back to work and with their families. And actually, as much as we love our doctors and our clinicians, nobody really wants to spend time with them if they can, if they can help it. They would like to be cancer free and going on with their life. In the pandemic, we were not the only people that were thinking about having to be able to do some of these things locally and not be dependent on the US. The government of Canada has just launched a huge, well, not just, it's been a couple of years, a huge biomanufacturing initiative. They put $2 billion in it federally. And Dalhousie Faculty of Medicine has been very fortunate to partner with a number of groups across the country in this network to have a seat at the table in partnership to get some of that federal funding. Blah, blah, blah. I could tell you it was a lot of work, okay, between here and there. I'm faster than Mahmoud on his 3,000 years of research. Um, in March, the we were awarded, the Faculty of Medicine was awarded through the incredible effort of Dr. Scott Halprin and the team at the Canadian Centre for Vaccinology, important, about $22 million worth of funding to seed the infrastructure and to buy some of the equipment. But we also were able to acquire a facility that has a lot of the basic material that's already existing, and we were able to move. The Dean of Medicine, David Anderson, moved quickly last fall to secure that building that was already up and working. And that was worth about $20 million in about 5 years of time. So honestly, we are very close to getting this thing up and going. We hope within 18 months to have it certified and up and going, saving all that time and money. So although, what does it cost? What do we have to put into it? Really, we're looking for securing some matching funds, both from the province and in discussion, and from philanthropy to reduce that $80 million down to, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I'm not good at the money part, okay? I'm not good at that, but it's about $4 million that we're looking for in matching funds to get it started all together. So, and we're investing funds and thinking about, where that is. So, $4 million is still a lot of money, but it is significantly less money and less time. We don't want to wait 5 years for these treatments. We want to be doing it as soon as possible. It's significantly less than 80 million. I hope that's kind of a bit detailed and granular, but it's a significant opportunity we have that could only have worked because of the stars aligned. To be quite honest, it's been amazing.
Can I just say one? Go ahead.
From our philanthropy partners and from all the places that we're doing it, it's a significant amount of money, but it is also something that leverages many millions of dollars in value already, which is already existing and ready to go.
Can I just say one more thing about the cost?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So we with the QE2 Foundation, we secured 2.3 million for some of the infrastructure too. But just to give you a more practical idea, treatment of one patient with this treatment used to cost $1 million when we used to send patients to the States. Right now, we do it here. It costs like about half of that, half a million. So this 4 million could be like treating 8 patients. We are expecting to treat about 15 to 20 patients as a beginning. Here in Nova Scotia, we already treated 30 patients, but as it grows, as expansion in the indications, this will grow like 2 to 3 times more, and every time it adds up more cost. So I think with my simple head, with my simple math, I think it's worth it. It's very cost efficient to have more access across the province.
Yeah, 4 patients instead of one is a huge amount of saving for us and for our healthcare system. I saw a question there, please.
Yes, yes and no, because like we do have it. I don't know if we can like say it out loud, but it will be significantly less than that. So we are talking like maybe one third or even one fourth of what we pay right now to have it here.
And if I can jump in, we're not still paying $1 million. So when you're
No,
dividing
we are
it
paying
by
like
4,
half.
it's a number less than $1 million divided by 4. One of the other one of the big expensive parts of this is it's the nitty gritty vector that you use to engineer the cell that's protected by intellectual property that's owned by other people. All you need to know about that is that that makes it more expensive. Part of this Biocanerics partnership that we have, and with contributions from the National Research Council, is we're making made in Canada vectors that'll be like also publicly available. So that's another point where the cost of this is going to be, sort of driven down, and this that makes it more kind of useful in our ecosystem.
Perhaps this kind of maybe this will be for you guys. Picture this: we have this 3 years from now. In terms of access to that care for a patient, what does that mean? Because that patient's not going to come get the cells at GMA facility. So how are we integrating this both like scientifically and then also to like our outreach communities to actually get these into physicians' hands, trained in the way that's needed?
I can answer this. So right now, all patients have to be treated at the QE2 hospital, at the VG. That's where you have all the trained like hematologists and other physicians and nurses, and it's very skilled. And that's the way it is all over the country, all over the world. You can treat patients with this type of therapy outside of a very specialized team. So that will be still the case. But what we're hopeful to have is to have a faster turnaround time and cheaper products, less expensive, that will expand our ability to provide to more patients. And that's what we do right now for the rest of Atlantic Canada, by the way. So we are the only facility that offers this treatment transplant in Atlantic Canada, allogeneic transplant and CAR T-cell therapy. As a future, as we go into the future, we are hopeful this will be even an outpatient procedure. So patients can take this, like, in a medical day unit, and they come and go to be checked daily. As treatment moves down the pipeline, it gets safer, it gets easier to administer. People get more experience, get more comfortable. As we started, we weren't at the same comfort level we are at today in treating those patients. I can tell you that for sure because I witnessed it. So now we are moving more and more towards expansion, not the other way around. And this is a chance, as I said, like the chance really serves a prepared mind. So we need to take it.
So I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your questions. If you have more questions, we will certainly, our great advancement team can help to coordinate that. If you have more questions and things you want to do, this is an exciting time for all of us. So again, if you could just help me just thank our speakers, and Catherine's going to come up and kind of wrap it up.
Yes, thank you all again. That was great. And thank you, Eileen, for hosting our Q&A. I want to take one last moment to again thank Shanex, our gold sponsor. And let's just give a round of applause to sponsors who make these events possible. Together, we are pioneering possibilities in cancer research and making strides towards a healthier future. I want to let you know you're welcome to take home the flowers on your table. If you'd like to take some home, there's people in the lobby ready to wrap those up for you. And don't forget to sign up for our fabulous in print magazine. Like, how many places still print their magazine? It's out in the lobby. It's called Remedy, and we produce it twice a year and feature great research stories. Let us know if you like getting something in print. I'm of the generation that is a little bit tired of the digital, so I love the print. And please stay tuned. We are experimenting with doing breakthrough breakfasts quarterly, and we hope that you are enjoying that. Our next breakthrough breakfast will be in September, and you can watch for news about the topics coming up ahead. Thank you so much for joining us today.